Can't wait till I turn 50.
Yeah, cue the Hawaii 5-0 theme music.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, that's fun. Hey, we got 50th episode. I got my wife turning 50 next month. It's a big year for 50s.
There you go.
And we have real royalty today. We have the king of social selling, Daniel Disney here. Daniel, welcome.
We're not worthy.
Carson, Brandon, thank you for having me. And the king thing's a funny title, but I'm so excited to be here, let alone for the 50th episode. I'm really looking forward to this.
Hey, yeah, Carson, I'm sorry, real quick. Carson, we had the opportunity for a Wayne's World movie reference already with We're Not Worthy.
You nailed it. Yep.
I mean,
we're gonna be firing on all cylinders today for number 50. I think everybody brought their A game.
That's right. We were trying to impress Daniel is what we're trying to do.
True.
I'm impressed.
We want him to keep us in his court.
That's right.
All right. Well, welcome Daniel Williams and Mohammed and Dave got their seats early. If you're online, please jump in. Let us know you're here, where you're from. We've got Daniel in England, and we're all over the place today. So let's get started. We have three. We have Brandon, Daniel, and Carson with a dad joke today. Brandon has been bragging a lot, so we're going to let him go last. Carson, why don't you kick things off?
All right. Let's do this. So every week I ask ChatGPT to give me a dad joke that will beat Brandon Lee. And this week, the ChatGPT dad joke is, what do you call a group of musical whales? An orchestra.
Oh, I was almost ready to say something like that.
That's good.
That's good.
I like it.
It's real good.
All right, Daniel, you're up.
Oh, I get to be last.
You're in the pole position.
Dang, pressure.
I mean, my joke is pretty bad. I could tell a joke about pizza, but it's a little too cheesy.
Oh.
That's not that bad. If you've seen previous episodes, that's par for the course, actually.
Yeah,
I'll throw it in there.
That's well above average. Well above average. All right, Brandon, pressure's on.
All right. I actually am going to read it to make sure I don't screw it up. Ready? What happens when you get into a fight with a dinosaur? You get your ass kicked.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
That's respectable.
I think I'm going to go with Brandon today.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Look at that.
I'll vote for that as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so that's the end of episode 50. Thanks everybody for.
Hey, I'm done for the day. I can't go anywhere.
You need to do the George Costanza leave on a high note.
That's right.
All right. Well, Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself and congratulations. Was it just yesterday or the day before you were nominated or appointed a LinkedIn Sales Insider? So
yeah, thank you. That's correct. Yesterday, LinkedIn, I think they did one last year with 22 salespeople, and this year they've added another 16, and I was lucky to be included as one of them. I've been sharing sales content on LinkedIn for around 10 years now, and obviously any recognition from LinkedIn is appreciated. But yeah, my name is Daniel Disney. No relation to Walt Disney or the Disney Corporation, but I'm a salesperson. I've worked in sales my entire working life and started using LinkedIn around 10 years ago. Realized it, had lots of opportunities to work in sales and have been a social seller ever since.
And you've got a couple of books as well, right?
Yeah, published a couple of books over the last few years. The first one, the black one, The Ultimate LinkedIn Sales Guide, was, as a salesperson, I just wanted to create a resource for salespeople specifically on how to use LinkedIn and social selling, from profiles, content, personal brands. And then this year, the Ultimate LinkedIn Messaging Guide came out, which was how to stop salespeople sending spammy messages and show them how to write conversational messages instead, ones that actually are valuable, sent to the right people. So yeah.
Well, and it looks like we have a couple here. A LinkedIn user, don't know who it is, but somebody read your book, implemented it, and said they had great results. So
that's good.
Love that.
Great to hear.
That's all I can ask for.
So we're going to, since we have Daniel, the king of social selling here today, we are going to really dig into some questions and just, I don't know, kind of a summary of a lot of things we've talked about over the last 50 episodes and try and kind of encapsulate this here. But we wanted to start off with the kind of, what do you see is the current state of social selling? Obviously you've been doing this for a long time. Why do you think it is? And we'll talk more about the future, but where are we now and where have we come from?
It's funny, I was literally thinking about this the other day, about 5-6 years ago when I started to build a bit of a name in the social selling space. I spent most of my time arguing with traditional salespeople, and it was all about cold calling versus social selling, and the debate was just everywhere. And what's been very interesting looking at it now, I think social selling is a lot more embraced, acknowledged, accepted, which is great. There's no more arguments, which is nice. So there's more people doing it. The flip side of that is what we have is a lot of companies telling their salespeople to social sell, and essentially the same way they do a lot of other sales activities, it tends to revolve around connecting, spamming, sending these copy and pasted sales pitch messages. And it's just this sort of same way people make cold calls. It's here's a list of numbers, here's a script, just go and make tons and tons of calls. And it's the same thing. Here's a LinkedIn message, go and spam it out to anyone you can, and let's see what sticks. And that's the state of social selling right now. I'm happy that we've got more people accepting it and it's embraced, but we now need to work on helping people understand the better way to do it, the more professional, authentic, genuine way.
Do you think that we've gotten worse with sort of I'll just call it the shitty way of social selling over the last, few months, or do you see a little bit of an improvement in the sense of really looking at it from the relationship standpoint and kind of how we frame it, on this show?
I see two sides. The positive side, I see a lot of salespeople creating good content, and that's a massive improvement. It's really nice to see salespeople putting out authentic posts, sharing their stories, giving value. That's great. I think messaging has got a lot worse. And funnily enough, I've had a few messages come in today from founders of companies. So not even just salespeople, founders of companies pitching investment. And these investment pitching messages are worse than the sales pitch messages. So you've got founders of companies sending out spammy messages as well. And I think that's gotten a lot worse, especially this year. I'm getting more than ever through InMails, through LinkedIn message. So that's probably the bigger problem. But in the positive side of things, content and personal branding seems to be, on the up.
One of my colleagues actually turned me on recently to a book, Factfulness. And the whole premise of it is it looks at, the reality. You think about the world we live in, and it's, if you ask somebody in a survey, they'd probably say we're worse off than we were. But the reality is, we've made a lot of strides as a global global world over the last 10, 15, 20 years in a lot of key areas. And I think social selling is the same way. While there is a lot of bad practice right now, I think the fact that we've turned the corner from being, really an anomaly 5-10 years ago. I mean, I talk on this show all the time, Daniel, about the fact that when I started, doing social selling about a decade ago, and I was tinkering, and, I'd have managers that would say things like, what do you mean you're using LinkedIn to prospect? They didn't get it, but now it is being embraced. It's just not being done well. And like most sales fundamentals, it makes it all the more important that, first off, the C-suite buys off on it and understands the value and what can really come of it, but also that we adopt a way of doing it that is effective and responsible and really perpetuates what we want social selling and frankly, selling to be all about, because sales is a noble profession. I think it's great that people are doing it. I think it's great that people understand that social selling is valuable. Now we just got to make sure everybody's doing it right.
No, I agree. And then the problem we have is we've got a lot of these companies trying to grow fast. And so what they push is the scale button, which is how can we mass do something? How can we automate things and get tons of stuff going out? And I think we need to slow down a little bit and realize that sales, and I know, we'll probably talk about AI at some point today, but real sales, especially B2B sales, is personable. It's about having conversations with the right people, human to human. And the problem is we've got too many companies trying to push their sales teams on the mass side of things. And yeah, if we can balance that out a little bit and use social for what it really is and what sales is, and that's about people buying from people.
It seems to me, I mean, you're spot on about people buying from people. It seems to me that we are it's still in the beginning stages, but a lot of companies over the last 3 years, especially from COVID, where everything became inside and everybody tried, rework. And I believe then there was this massive push to quantity, right? And that's where this just get stuff out there. And I believe, and from personal conversations, from some of the data that I'm reading, that 3 years into it is when people are starting to scratch their head a little bit going, wait a minute, this isn't working. And I believe that is causing a lot more of these conversations around, so what exactly is social selling? And what is it more than just the pitch slaps and the automation? And I applaud that. I mean, I hate it that they had to get there by trying a bunch of stupid activities that cost them a lot of time and money. But I do believe there's just a lot more people that are taking this social thing more serious, because the fast way wasn't fast after all.
Well said.
Yeah, and I think there's been I see this, right, not just in my social feed, but on my email. I think there's a lot of panic right now almost sometimes with a lot of organizations that are just do anything, just get it out there, whatever, numbers. And I think we're all seeing that that's backfiring in a lot of ways that are there. Carson, I know you have a couple questions, but before we do that, I want to welcome a couple more people here. We have our friend, regular Captain Kirk. So he welcomes you, Daniel. He's from the bridge. He's a regular.
Hey, Captain
here.
Kirk. I love it.
Right. And Sharif and Merrick and Jeff, who says Carson is a sales master. Did you pay Jeff?
Well, that's not relevant.
Sorry. And Michael and from Germany, which is great. And Kristen, I want to hit this comment here, is, Kristen says it's about efficiency, not biometrics. Number of calls is nothing if you just get voicemail. And a lot of the messages we just talked about not only are just going into voicemail, they're just noise, right? They're just being disregarded, and you're setting yourself back.
And we can do this in a little bit, but I think Kathy's comment on there is worth us taking some time to talk about. If we do it later, that's fine.
Oh, go
I
for
was
it.
actually going to reference her question as part of my follow-up. And, Daniel, I'm really interested in your thoughts, because I think all of us would be remiss not to point out that part of social selling is being willing to tinker and to try things. Mm-hmm. There's probably been things that all of us have done that, we probably learned from. We, realized that our message wasn't as effective as we wanted it to be. So we modified our approach, connection requests versus in mail, and all these big questions that are out there. And I think, Kathy, at the heart of it, your comment is so poignant, because, look, we're all chasing quotas. We're all chasing numbers. Now, I've always subscribed to the philosophy that if I do the process right and I surround myself with the right resources and people and relationships, I've never had to worry about quota a day in my life. And I've only missed quota once in my entire life, and that's a whole nother story I wrote a book about. But anyway, my point is, Daniel, I'd love to hear from you. Like, what have you seen over the last decade of this that works, doesn't work? Some of your key learnings that you've had, and maybe things that you've tried that you said, hey, I don't necessarily like this approach. I'm going to try it a new way. I'd love to hear your thoughts about how your personal approach has adapted and evolved over time, ultimately with the goal of hitting that quota.
It's a really good question, and Kathy's point kind of hits the nail on the head. What I found is the more, and this was more early on, the more I tried to sell, the less I sold. The more I tried to sell through LinkedIn, whether it was trying to advertise my product through content, whether it was trying to be a little bit more pitchy in the messaging or the connection request, that's where the failures were happening. And that was where it was a case of, okay, let's try not selling. And that's where the value first kind of strategy came into play, which is give in your connection request, give value in your messages, give value through your content. Don't go out there trying to sell. And Carson, to your point, the more you sort of don't try and hit that quota, take the pressure off your shoulders and just go out there and help people, that's where success in sales comes from. And it's hard because a lot of salespeople have managers on their back asking for numbers, asking for updates constantly. And the pressure is very real. It takes some time for a salesperson to be able to sort of bench that and look at sales differently. But same to your point, when you can do that, that's where success comes from. And in all parts of LinkedIn and social selling, looking at your messages and making it about them and the value you can give them, the content, not trying to promote something, but if you're selling to CMOs, give them value. What advice, what insights can you give? Your episode with Anthony Iannarino talked about, instead of asking, C-suite, what are your problems? Find out what their problems are in the industry and then give them insights from other C-suite executives. And so a value first approach was probably the biggest lesson I learned quite early on. And it's what I see a lot of salespeople learning the hard way. But I think the biggest key to it is to sales leaders. You need to lead that. They are the ones ultimately putting the pressure on, and the ones that can, take some of that pressure off and help their salespeople see that, they need to give first.
And I think on some future episode, we're going to need to do a social selling sins, like Social Selling Anonymous. We'll all kind of come clean and admit, like, our sins. Like, have I spammed? Have I, sent something that bragged about how great my company was in the past? I think we've all done it.
We've all done it.
But the key element is learning from it and evolving and adapting so that we're showing up with value. Love that.
If we do that, is it more like confessional? We're
dark screen and
okay, perfect.
Tell who the voice is. Yes.
Okay, perfect. We'll throw our sins out.
We could call it the Confessions of Social Sellers. I think that would.
There you go.
I mean, we'd have our TV show, I think, from that. So.
I could just see us on a reality show.
Well, Brandon already is a bona fide star.
Oh gosh, here we go again. Nice. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. I want to just bring it up because we were talking. Daniel was referencing it earlier, but Laura's comment about the unrealistic pressure that's come from VCs and private equity.
Very true.
And you know what? It not only has them by the throat, but it caused a lot of bad activity. And it was in the name of hurry up, and we've got these numbers to hit. But it's actually counterproductive to the way real human beings work, and buyers are still real human beings.
Completely. And I want to hit Dave's question here. Dave, I think Dave may have been to all 50 episodes, if not most of them here. So thank you, Dave. But he's asking, in your experience, Daniel, what 2 or 3 things stand in the way of senior executives, leadership embracing social?
I think the biggest one is resistance to change. Change is not easy for anyone. And when you're in a senior leadership position, it's scary, the thought of implementing it. So there's that fear of change, but then there's the sort of misconception of what social selling is, and this sort of common misunderstanding that it's a marketing activity, that it's fluffy, it's not as tangible as make 100 calls and have 20 conversations and create 10 opportunities. It's not as transferable as that. So there's a lot of gray areas and sort of confusion around social selling. I think that is what holds most of them back. And in a lot of the conversations I have, it's a case of trying to help them understand and see the tangible, see the numbers, see the conversions, see the way it connects into all things. But social selling is so encompassing. It isn't, again, as black and white as cold calling or email or anything like that, where it can be numbers and very black and white. And that's, I think, it's the confusion of the unknown.
Frank just made a really cool comment here. Corporate courage. That's you've coined a term today, Frank. I think that's an important one. I think here's the key element to that point. I think it's very ambiguous for some of these senior leaders. It's a foreign concept to them in some degree, and I couldn't agree more. It's that embracing that change. Best manager I ever had. Didn't get it at first, but understood, as I was starting to be able to provide results as an individual contributor, as a social seller. And I've talked about it before on this show. I think that was the key element. What she instilled in me was you've got to find ways to make it tangible. What outcomes are you driving and what are you influencing? And see, that's the key element. Is my team and I now, we leverage social selling frequently, and we drive more pipeline and converted deals in certain solution areas than anybody else. And it's not a coincidence. It is because of adapting the process, but it takes time. You've got to believe in it. You've got to build a foundation, and you've got to have consistent execution of it over time. But you've also got to be able to have tangible results that you can speak to and show that it works. But there's a lot of people that still, for whatever reason, will not adopt it because it is an uncomfortable muscle.
But we have a lot of people on LinkedIn and social that unfortunately don't help that because they make it fluffy. LinkedIn has been compared to Facebook over the last few years. There are a lot of people that do put out that fluffy message and make people think that it's that easy. Post some selfies and you get tons of inbound leads. And the reality, when you've worked in sales, you understand that it's not that black and white, and probably a lot of those people aren't actually making a lot of money from it. And it is all about building a strategy, building a process, driving social with the mindset of sales, looking for those opportunities. And it's a balancing act. You don't want to go too salesy where you're spamming. You don't want to go too fluffy where you're just posting selfies, but find that sweet spot in the middle, apply the strategy. That's where the results come. But it's a process. It's going to take time for sales leaders to, understand it.
And the only person I know that gets a lot of inbound business when they post selfies is Brandon Lee.
All right, let's get back to the real stuff. I love what you guys are saying, and I summarize it this way in my brain a lot of times with leaders is it's a control issue, right? With calls and emails and even pitch slap messages, there's quantified numbers that we can put to it that says, send out, make your 100 cold calls, make your 150, send out your 400 pitch slaps per day, whatever the limit is and all that. There's some sense of control. And I think that leadership just has this bad habit of feeling like they have to be in control. And that's why they're scared to empower people with social, because it's not tangible enough for them at the end of the day to say, you did good and you did bad. And that's where I think one of the biggest challenges is in trying to find that. Daniel, I mean, obviously you're right because your experience, but it's that balance of what is the softer messages and what is the strategy and where do we find the common ground. But I think we also need to find some KPIs that are not bullshit KPIs, but they're real KPIs to help the sales leaders feel like they have some sense of control and get rid of that fear, because fear, unfortunately, drives people to make decisions, and they end up being fearful decisions.
It's true.
And I want to point out, this was from a LinkedIn user again, but I think this is really relevant. We were talking about numbers, right? And Carson, you were talking about the numbers. Are the numbers the real problem? Or does the company not feel like they're able to add value as it relates to building the content and the relationship, right? It's like, yeah, I think the numbers are, to your point, Brandon, if I don't know the numbers or I don't have visibility on numbers, that can be scary. But I can think it can be just as scary if I don't feel like I know the right thing to say, or if I'm having something to bring value. What's your take on that, Daniel?
It's a really funny one, because I think going in there and saying, "Oh, I'm not sure I have value." Well, if you don't think you have value, why are you working in this job? Why are you trying to help people? Everyone has value, from an SDR with 0 experience to a salesperson with 10, 20 years experience. We all have value to give, even if it's just by helping or connecting the dots for our customers. So I don't necessarily believe that would be the real driver, but you're right in the sense of I maybe don't know how to apply that value. It's just not understanding how to do it. I have the value. Everyone has the value. Everyone has a personal brand. I mean, I've seen SDRs with 0 sales experience build huge personal brands with thousands of likes and tens of thousands of followers, because they share the story, because they're out there trying to help their customers. And so we all have value. It's learning how to put that value on social in a way that's authentic and genuine, and ultimately is going to give something to our customers. So yeah, I think it's more I don't know how to do it, as opposed to I don't have the value. I would hope everyone can reflect and see that they all have something to bring to the table.
I think see if these dots connect. I don't mean to get so deep, but I think we as businesses made a mistake in the early days of the internet when we gave the wwws to marketing, because websites were just a digital version of a brochure. And so we handed it to marketing, and it's been on a path ever since where mostly marketing has owned all things digital. But sales traditionally have been the ones that understood relationships and conversations, and marketing knew how to broadcast messages. They knew how to talk at people. And I think that's where we made the mistake. And now that we're trying to get back into more digital and social and offer value, salespeople who know how to listen as well as talk aren't really invited to that table enough. They're fighting to be a part of that conversation with leadership, where marketing has just owned that conversation for so long. And that's why I think, like you're saying, Daniel, people have value, but are the right people in the organization helping create those messages that are really giving value? Or is it faux value with a sales message because we got to get the leads to fill the top of the funnel so that I can hand off my MQLs and check off that I did my job? And I know that's a little skeptical, and excuse me to the CMOs out there, but that's what I see over the last 20 to 25 years.
But that's the best part. Like, social selling is literally the perfect opportunity for sales and marketing to come together, because the salespeople know what they need to say. They know what they need to put out. They just don't know how to do it. Marketing don't really understand how to put the stuff out on LinkedIn, but they know how to create good copy, how to craft it, how to make it look good and sound good. And it's the perfect marriage. And the best companies that are, leveraging LinkedIn and social selling are the ones that do come together. Marketing help train salespeople how to create content. Salespeople help marketing understand what their customers want and need to know. And it's that marriage that works, which, I mean, it's not just social selling. Everything that, when marketing and sales get on, that's where results really thrive. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for it.
It's super interesting that you say that, Daniel, because I would agree wholeheartedly. I think a lot of times sales is over here and marketing's over here, and we don't know exactly how to meet in the middle. Sales says we don't have the materials that we need or the right touch to get the customer to pay attention. And, marketing is trying to do everything they can to create, but are they at the pulse of what's really going to get the buyer to respond to a request for a sales meeting? And so what's interesting, and I know that I'm a unicorn in the selling community, but I will say that I work hand in hand with marketing. In fact, a lot of times I'll have marketing ask me to promote their events, or I will go, work with marketing to create collateral and drive leads. And, one of the key questions that was thrown out there was about the KPIs. What are the KPIs for social selling? And I'd be interested in, what are your thoughts around that, Daniel? I know how I operate when it comes to social selling from an enterprise sales perspective. It is all about how am I going to execute the plays that are out there. We have different solution buckets that we sell into. We have a litany of plays that we can construct. How am I going to execute them? I use a lot of LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, Smart Links, and do things where I can get some telemetry on who's reacting and responding to the messages that I'm using. I absolutely use some of marketing's content, but the goal is to get meetings. And so I work with my team to construct actionable messaging that will get meetings based on what customers care about. And then from there, it's all about tracking conversations. And from there, making sure that we are putting that into our pipeline in early stage, so that there's an accountability mechanism, so that, we have a very robust team. There's 80 people that touch my market. So it's make sure we have full visibility to all the things that are in flight, and that I'm building play execution around everything that matters to everyone that touches our customer portfolio. But, obviously you guys talk to a lot of different business leaders and sellers. Daniel, what are the key KPIs for social selling in your mind?
I mean, there's a real obvious one, which a lot of sales teams don't go to first, and that is how much revenue each week, month, quarter, year has come from an opportunity created through LinkedIn or social selling. That's the most important one, and that should be the number one metric measured. And it's ironic, because LinkedIn's own social selling index, it's a great KPI. It can be used, but it's based on a lot of the activity that's less tangible. It's based on your profile and your searches, which is good activity, but it's still quite low down. So you start off with total revenue that's originated, and best way to measure that is to link it up with your CRM, have options for salespeople to select. This opportunity came from LinkedIn, and go deeper. This opportunity came from a LinkedIn voice note. This opportunity came in from a LinkedIn video message or an inbound inquiry. So you can really understand where it's coming from. And then you start to reverse engineer how many meetings were booked, how many demos were booked that came from LinkedIn and whatever part of LinkedIn, and you work your way back to the activity. But again, it's using things like the CRM, things like Sales Navigator, and other ways to really bring that together. And I just want to say, the questions and comments are absolutely, it's just this constant thing. I know I would happily, we could stay on this for hours and probably get through them. But what I will commit to, and I'm sure everyone will do, I will spend some time going through all these questions in the comments and trying to reply to as many as I can, because the questions are amazing, and I wish we could answer them all. Really good comments coming through.
You bring out the audience. You bring out the audience.
That's it. Thank you for addressing that, Daniel, because I was looking at that too, going, these are some great questions.
You're good.
I would like to bring up, and forgive me, everybody, because we're not going to have time to get to them all, but, all four of us will commit to come in and look at comments and address them. But Tom, can you go down? Laura Eisenberg had a question about IT CXOs. And I just think it's a really good question for both Daniel and Carson, since they're both here. She says they consider IT CXOs think social selling is weak. They consider that approach is too nice. And in their minds, it only furthers the sales cycle. But she's asking basically, what advice do you guys have? And Carson, you sell to CXOs in IT space and healthcare. And Daniel, you're the king of LinkedIn. So great question for the two of you. Thank you, Laura, for that. That's an awesome question.
Carson, I'll let you go first.
Oh, please.
Okay. I sold into the IT space, the C-suite and the IT for many years. And it's interesting when you say it elongates the sales cycle. What I found, especially over the last couple of years, is done right, it speeds up the sales cycle. It improves it. It makes it more efficient, more effective. So kind of the opposite. And it's because you build trust, earn credibility, give value, sometimes even before you've had that conversation, which is not where a lot of salespeople are positioning themselves. So even back then, I found that to be the case, even more so now. And it's just an education piece. It's about showing examples. And if you're working in a company and you don't have, a lot to bring to the table, try it on your own. You don't need to get the full sign off internally. Maybe just start doing it a bit yourself. Start getting some results and show your leadership team, look, this is what I've been able to do. Imagine if we put more behind it. But I would 100% say, if anything done right, it can massively speed up the process and make every part of the sales process better.
Well said. I'm going to quote Eric Clapton from one of my favorite movies, my favorite sales movie, The Color of Money. It's in the way that you use it. And frankly, social selling, it done right, to Daniel's point, look, my team and I, we can get the meetings that everybody claims can't be gotten. And it's all about listening to signals. It's about going out, and it's what we talk about on this show. You follow your key prospect that you want to land the meeting with. You comment on their posts. And, within the last few weeks, I got a meeting with the CEO of one of our largest organizations that nobody's ever met with. And I managed to get it just by commenting on his LinkedIn post for several months straight. Same thing. Apply that to the messaging that you send to your customers. If you know what's top of mind and you're paying attention to what they're saying in their earnings reports, or you're watching the trade magazines and you're seeing what's happening in the industry, and you're watching the news and you're seeing if there's M&A activity in that organization or whatever it is. Look, right now, especially in IT, our customers want to talk about four things: price predictability and cost optimization. They want to talk about security. They want to talk about selling together in the market, and they want to talk about generative AI. And if I show up wanting to talk about one or all four of those things, I can get just about any meeting I want. And that's where social selling isn't weak. If you know what conversation starters will get any meeting you want, you can get any meeting you want. And sometimes I dazzle my team with the meetings that I'm able to get that they can't, only because of the fact that we're showing up with exactly what they want to talk about, with unique perspective, with value. Know the resources at your disposal, but leverage anything at your disposal to get those meetings. And social selling is anything but weak. It is very, very strong.
And Carson, just to add on to that, because that was like the best few minutes of words I've ever heard. That's not just how social selling is effective, but how social selling, when a leader embraces it, can be super impact. And then that's the point. It needs to be led from the top. And if sales leaders could have that mentality and want to embrace it and push it and even use it themselves, that's when you're going to start winning. We need more sales leaders and obviously C-suite founders to be embracing it, and it will trickle down because you are using it perfectly. You're going to be inspiring your team to use it perfectly. And that's where social selling is really going to come to life.
Man, Daniel, you're bringing out the best in all of us, man. Carson, I had Top Gun music going on in my head.
I know. We're going to have some really good editing for that part. So, hey, I wanted to bring up a couple of things because there's a lot of questions on KPIs and numbers. We've done 2 episodes, social selling by the numbers. I think one of them was 18 and I don't remember the other one, but definitely if you're interested in numbers and how to really sell this, go back and listen to those, because some of the statistics that we went over were amazing. I mean, really, really remarkable statistics. So there's a lot that we've talked about on that, and we're probably due for another social selling by the numbers show as well. I also wanted to we have so many great comments as you pointed out, but we're on multiple feeds, just so you know. So if you're watching on like our social selling page, you may not be seeing the same comments that are coming off of Daniel's feeds or Carson's feed. They get kind of spread out. So apologize. So we're trying to aggregate them and bring them together here. But if you don't see a comment, that's why you didn't see it. I hope
Tom,
that made any sort of sense whatsoever. Go ahead,
Can
Brandon.
can I go into one of the other comments again and ask for the three of you to answer this as well? It's Jeff Wright. It was a while ago, but he asked it to you, Daniel, if you don't mind answering it first. He says, do you feel it's more important to host LinkedIn Lives like the one we're on now, or grow a new LinkedIn group, or grow your potential referral partnership, joint venture opportunities, so forth? I know we get asked that question quite a bit, and we call it, the value of episodic content. But I'd love for you guys to address that question too, because we do hear it a lot.
I mean, I'll kick it off. LinkedIn groups have been not very good for a long time. I know LinkedIn keep trying to revive them, and I live in hope that they do. Facebook have got groups down to a T. They're pushed, and that's great. I think LinkedIn will get there at some point. Right now, I personally wouldn't suggest putting a lot of time into a group. I mean, you could slowly try and build one up so when they are optimized, you've got a bit of an audience. But LinkedIn Lives, absolutely phenomenal. Sort of bit of content. But actually, I mean, the best thing I would advocate, and I know it was something we were hoping to discuss today, is building your personal brand. That's the biggest asset you've got. That's your own unique audience that you can grow and build. And if you keep building it, I mean, it's a compounding effect. As long as you keep working at it, it's only going to keep growing and growing and growing. And there is just no limit to the opportunities it can lead to. But the best thing you can do is try and do as many of them as you can. You can build a personal brand, you can grow a company page, you can do LinkedIn Live, start a newsletter, start sharing content. It doesn't take as much time as a lot of people are sort of fearful of. So I would, in that question, lean towards LinkedIn Lives as being the better platform right now. But keep an eye on groups, because LinkedIn are trying to bring them back.
Yeah, I think the short answer, Jeff, is yes. Like, if there's a pocket of your audience out there somewhere, you want to try to find a way to meet them where they are, right? So, like, for instance, as an example, and I think I've talked about it on this show before, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'll try anything, TikTok to my daughter's chagrin. But, for instance, like on Twitter, I've got the most followers there. I've got over 250,000, but predominantly it's mostly for like book sales. I've gotten a lot of book sales through Twitter. But where I connect with my customers is through LinkedIn. That's where I get customer executive meetings. And then I map out everything on a grid as far as how I'm executing. The trick is to find ways to scale. And as Daniel said, like it's very easy to create some content in the morning and very quickly have something go out to Anchor by Spotify, go out to my WordPress blog, go out to my Twitter feed, go out to Instagram, TikTok, et cetera. And so finding those ways to scale and meet and invest in all of those different pockets, I consider it kind of like a diversified stock portfolio. Figure out all the areas where your people are and invest in all of them. You never know exactly which one's going to move and when. I've had a LinkedIn group for the last several years, and it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But what's cool about LinkedIn groups is I've got about 6,000 people in my group. You can go in and you can recommend posts. So every week you can recommend one post that goes out to all 6,000 people, and it's maybe something that somebody posted that I want to feature, or something that I posted, or whatever may have you. So there's ways to leverage all of them with value. But the trick is, to Daniel's earlier point, it's all about balance and it's all about scale.
It's like multiple income streams. It's not about having your eggs in one basket. Have as many different channels as you can, as many different audiences. It's only going to build and give you value. And you're right, people go to different places. Some people like watching LinkedIn Live. Some people don't. Some people like to read a newsletter. Some people want to see a photo with some sort of personal post. And the more spread out you are, the more results you're going to get.
Well, and if you look at the data too, from just login rates, and I think the reason why LinkedIn groups are so up and down is overall people log into LinkedIn fewer times per week, per day, than they do to Instagram or Facebook or now TikTok. So spreading out like that gives you opportunities to be seen a lot more often by people who may not be looking for you at the moment. Like I might, I log into TikTok and pay attention to a lot of stuff on my health food stuff and things like that. But then sure enough, there's Carson popping up in front of me as well. So I think that's the way people use, especially Instagram Reels and TikTok. but it still gives us an opportunity to be in front of them. If on average, people are logging into LinkedIn twice a week, where they log into TikTok like 3 times a day. And I don't remember the exact data, but it was something like that.
Yeah, and I think I'll just weigh in on my 2 cents on this. I agree, Carson, with you is yes on this. Is a group has a different objective, right? A group is building community, it's building peer-to-peer interaction. You have a different objective there. Whereas a live here, we're trying to reach out, much like you do a webinar or something like that. We're trying to reach out and touch as many different people as we can in doing that. And clearly, like with some of the tools like we're using here and that are available that allow us to stream on multiple places and so forth, it's a great way to reach a lot of people and reach people that you wouldn't normally do anyway. So I think, the two certainly can be used hand in hand, right? We can drive people from a live into a group or to a community or whatever, but I don't think it's an either or situation. It's all of the above. So, hey, I would love to do, we should schedule right now for episode 100, a social selling telethon that we go for like 2 hours or something, or 3 hours, and just keep going on all of that. But I wanted to touch on a couple things before we run out of time here, because I think it's so important. One is we get a lot of people reaching out to us talking about personal brand. Like, what does it mean to create a personal brand? Should I create a personal brand? I think it goes arm in arm and a lot of things we've been talking about. But Daniel, what's your take on what is a personal brand and how is it important? And do you think it's important as a sales professional or a sales leader, or even as an executive, to do that as you go forward?
I'll start with a story that I think really shows you what the potential value of a personal brand is. And it was last year, I sent a connection request to a CEO, big global company. I have no relationship with them or that company, but they were a prospect of mine. Now, the CEO accepted my connection request. And before I sent the message, they sent me the first message saying, Daniel, your reputation precedes you. Looking forward to getting to know you. That's the power of a personal brand. As a salesperson who spent my early years knocking doors, making cold calls, and spending countless times trying to convince people that, I was credible, my company was credible, to be able to be at that step of the process so early on is such an advancement. And that's why, when we mentioned earlier, social selling done right speeds up the sales process, because while every other salesperson is having to introduce themselves, having to build trust and rapport, a personal brand allows you to speed that up dramatically. And it goes beyond just prospecting and initial conversations. It's about rapport, relationship building. That social personal brand based relationship goes beyond closing the sale. It's around giving value continuously, and instead of the quarterly or yearly calls of, hey, how's it going? Do you want to buy anything else? They're getting value from you all the time. You're interacting with them. They're interacting with you. A personal brand is your chance to build a personal human-to-human relationship with your prospects and customers online. And it's something that can be done from such little activity, some content shared, some engagement, some comments. It's just about being present and being consistent, and at the heart of it, giving value. But a personal brand is the biggest asset a salesperson can invest in right now. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a compounding effect. You can build and build and build and build. And just to one final thing, the biggest misconception with a personal brand is you need to be an expert to build one, and you don't. You can be in any position with any experience. It's about sharing your journey. It's about having that, I want to help people and I'm going to document my journey through that. Anyone can build a personal brand.
Daniel, can I ask you a quick follow-up question on that?
Please.
How do people overcome the fear? That's kind of the question that we get a lot. Like, okay, I get it, but how do I start? And really, if you take, peel down the onion a little bit, it comes down to fear. Like, I don't know if I have anything really to say, which we know is bull. Everybody's got great things to say, but how would you answer that question?
There's a few things. I mean, there are obviously resources out there that can help you, programs, consistency pieces, but ultimately just start slow. It's no different to doing anything new. You're looking at it like the top of the mountain. Oh, I need to get thousands of followers or hundreds of likes, and just start slow. I think the best tip I can give is go out there and try and help people. Don't worry about the likes or the comments that you get. Just go and try and help people. If that's your purpose, then it doesn't matter. And don't forget, you might put a post out and it might have loads of tips for your target prospects, and maybe it gets 2 likes and 30 views. There'll be people that will see it that don't add a like, don't write a comment, but are impacted by it. They're influenced by it. And maybe in a week or a month or a few months, you get a message from them and they say, I've really enjoyed your content. I would like to have a conversation. The impact your content can make goes beyond just the engagement. But the best tip is start with 1 post a week, put it out there and just take it step by step, but don't focus at the top of the mountain. Just build yourself up. It takes time and, overcoming fear. Talk to people, talk to your colleagues, talk to your peers, have conversations. But yeah, biggest thing is get started.
Awesome.
I've been in tech sales my whole career, and Carson, I'm definitely interested in your take on this as well. Obviously now, right, tech can be harder than ever, not just to get a deal, but to keep a relationship and not get replaced and build increased revenue and increase revenue retention and not get pushed out by a competitor. And I think one of the greatest things that not only a salesperson, but an executive in a tech company can do is build that personal brand and build that it just makes you hear the word sticky, but it's sticky not for the reason of your product. It's sticky because they trust you and they build that partnership. And Carson, I think that plays perfectly to what you've seen and with a lot of the deals that you've done. Does that align?
Well, it's the credibility piece. And it's also, I'm willing and able to use the foundation of the brand that I've created to help my customers. And that's the key element. I'm always looking for ways to orchestrate new relationships. If I can go out and I can broker a conversation between this C-level at this organization and this C-level at this organization, both of whom I've connected with via LinkedIn, both of whom I understand their goals, what they're after, they don't compete. And there's areas where they can collaborate and I'm just the orchestrator of that. That's genuine value that I'm able to provide. And I think sometimes we don't look at the value that's right in front of us that we are able to deliver. Daniel hit on that earlier. There is value that is right there at your fingertips that you can deliver to people. And I think that's the key element. I look at selling very uniquely. I take my eye off of the quota and I think about genuine, authentic connection with people and trying to create and build community around what we do. I've had customers on my own webinars and podcasts. There wasn't necessarily some immediate benefit or boost to me, but what it did was it built credibility within that community, exposed me and them and their philosophies to both of our mutual audiences. And ultimately it breaks ground. We start doing something together. And I've shared before on this show, I've even gone so far as to introduce my contacts and my customers to the competition when it was the right thing to do, because we weren't the solution. But believe me that if I do that, my credibility grows. They're going to come to me because they're going to know that I'm going to take good care of them going forward. And I think that's the key element, because yes, we're in a scenario by which right now it takes a lot to earn that right to be the trusted advisor. And that's what we need to be focused on. Not that big quota number, not that big pipeline number. All of that stuff's going to come if we are very focused on seeking to serve and seeking to add value.
Well, and I wanted to tie that, what you just said, Carson. There was a comment back here. Oh, there was a comment that says, I wish the name personal brand, right, didn't sound so conceited or arrogant. But what you just talked about is forget personal brand. Basically focus on serving, be the trusted advisor. You'll get a personal brand. It's not like you have to go strive for it. You earn it by the process that you're going through.
And Daniel said it earlier with his story about sending the request to the CEO. Your reputation precedes you. Personal brand is nothing more than your reputation. The question is, are you working your reputation every day? Or are you hiding, going, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, and I am going to call people out on it, because you just got to try it and you got to start. It gets easier. We're 50 shows into this. You want a good laugh? Go look at our first 3 episodes. And it's not that, and when we do our 100 episode marathon, which sounds awesome, by the way, we're going to look back on number 50 and go, man, look at the things that we could have done better. Right? That's life. We continually grow and learn, but it's just your reputation, and you won't have a reputation if you're not communicating. Go out and comment. Start. I can't remember, Carson or Daniel, one of you said, just post once a week and go out for 15 minutes a day and just comment on your prospects post activity. Just show up.
And to piggyback off that, personal branding just makes you a known entity. That's it. It's kind of like when Daniel reached out to that CEO, or when I have customer executives who I've connected with, and maybe they didn't take the immediate request for a meeting. You know, I might reach out to them to try to get a meeting relatively soon on to, you know, tie off on what resources they're entitled to, et cetera. But they may not take that first meeting. But over time, as I become in their consciousness as far as posting different things and showing who I am and what I'm about, I've had many, many customer executives reach out to me wanting to meet with me because I'm finding ways to stay top of mind and I'm making myself accessible. And that's what branding is all about, is making sure that you're a known entity. I've had so many people very similarly that don't necessarily like and comment on my content, but so many people that have said, my gosh, you know, I love that post you did 3 months ago about XYZ. And I'm like, wow, thank you. And that's what you're building on as you're going out and you're making your daily or your weekly contributions.
But that's the networking side of it. And it's just like going to a networking event. Imagine going to a networking event once a week or once a month, but you just stand in the corner and you don't say anything. Well, you're never going to make an impression or get any business. But when you go to that networking event and you have conversations with prospects and customers and you're giving value, you're just doing that on LinkedIn. That's all that is. It's networking, but done socially. It's just about being present. It's building your name out there and building your reputation and not just sitting in the corner being quiet.
Brandon, you want to add something here?
You know, I just wanted to say thank you to Brandy. I don't know Brandy, haven't met her before, but she is so active in the comments today. And she did something in there of, you know, it was meant to be that you seen that I saw y'all today. So Brandy, thank you so much for being here.
No, and thank you for everybody. I mean, amazing.
Yeah, I don't mean to leave other people out.
We cannot keep up here.
Now, this one set the record for most comments thus far. So
yeah,
this is
that's because the king's here.
The king is here, right?
Long live the king.
So, hey, in the interest of time here, I want to wrap up with a topic that we've been touching on the last few weeks. And Daniel, I'm sure you're hearing a lot about it, obviously, is what do you see as the role of AI as we, in this whole world of social selling? Is it going to be good? Is it going to set us back, kind of starting where we went in the beginning? What's your take?
I think AI is an amazing tool when you use it the right way, which is kind of what we've been talking about with social selling. AI can help you come up with ideas. It can help you start to draft things. It shouldn't be a replacement. It shouldn't be create a LinkedIn post and then you just post it straight over, because I don't think it's never going to have your stories. It's never going to have your voice or your tone, but it can be helpful. It can help you come up with ideas for content, for messages, for articles. So what I would recommend is use it and then intertwine it with your own anecdotes and your own voice and tone. So I think it's a great aid, like all technology is for salespeople, like all platforms. They're great when you embrace them and use them, but they're not there to replace anything. It's not, don't let it make you become lazy. Just use it the smart way. That would be my thoughts.
Love that. Look, AI posts and comments stick out like a sore thumb. And so I think the key element to Daniel's point is, I love his point about using it to give you ideas. Let's say you want to ask it, ask ChatGPT to give you some ideas for a post that you might want to make today, give you some.
Or a dad joke.
Or a dad joke. Yeah.
There you go.
I think that's the key element, is giving you ideas, and even repurposing content. Like, I can go back and I can take an old video that I did and take out a little clip of a transcript and have it write it up as an article in my voice. It's just basically transcribing this 1 5-minute clip that might have gotten lost in a video that aired a year ago, but yet it's today's post, and it gets engagement and starts conversations. That's what it's all about. I always love to go back to my friend Bill Kirst, who just had his first book published. Congratulations, Bill. I think you're on today. And he always says, approach all of these situations with a bid to connect. And if you approach your social and you integrate AI with a bid to genuinely connect with people and authentically connect with people, you're going to be successful. Otherwise, if you use it to be lazy, you will not.
I like it.
I've Carson, to your point, you keep reinforcing research, right? Research and really knowing and one way I've started to use AI recently that I think is really going to be a help in the future is kind of building my own personal chat bot, but linking in data from companies I'm trying to research, whether it even posts and all of that, and then going through and using it as a way to get new insights. And whether that's used from a sales perspective or used from a LinkedIn, social perspective, by looking at a lot of different data and pulling it together, it gives you a way to look at things through different insights versus, and I think that's going to be the next generation of AI. I think this first generation has been, how do I create a post or how do I create a comment? And totally agree, right? It's so obvious when that happens, but I think there's a lot of power, which we'll talk about over the next few weeks and the next 50 weeks of how do you really use this to be even more thoughtful and provide that better experience.
Yeah, and I think if we treat AI like kind of like our brain, we got to get things out of our brain, our experience put into it, and then let it help us. And I think in a lot of ways it's going to help us do things because if we start feeding it, like Tom, you and I are looking at your chat bot and some of the things that we're working on the fist bump side, we got to feed it so it knows the stuff. And then it could kick it out to us and bring to our attention like, oh, hey, you added this story the other day, and hey, this story would be good in this comment or in this post. And it might remember things that we just tend to forget because we're human. And I know as I get older, I've got to work on those memory things. So yeah, I think AI is going to be really, really powerful. But like everything that we've been saying, there's going to be the easy way, there's going to be the fast and cheap and dirty way that doesn't really yield results because, Carson, to your point, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Or there's going to be really, really powerful ways, but it's going to take time. Like you got to train the brain.
Well, think about social selling 10 years ago. The salespeople that embraced it are the ones that are leveraging it and capitalizing on that. And it's the same with AI. Use it, leverage it, learn it, master it, use it to learn, to create, because it is going to advance and it's only going to get bigger and better. So I think there'll be a lot of salespeople putting their head in the sand, ignoring it, thinking it's going to go just like they did with social selling. And I definitely think it's something that should be embraced. But you're right. Do it with the right intentions. Don't use it to try and, save yourself tons of time and just automate and create horrendous messages and comments. Use it to help you be better.
Yeah, if you want to master your craft, which I assume everybody that's listening wants to, you're going to know all the tools and all the resources at your disposal that are going to help you meaningfully connect with your customer better and more often and more frequently in a meaningful way. And I think that's the key element is know the tools, know how to use them, know how not to use them. And, at the heart of it is seek to serve and show up with value. And if you do that with AI, you'll be successful.
Great answers. Well, Daniel, you lived up to your expectation as the king of social selling. So
thank you, sir.
Thank you. And thank you for being with us on episode 50. And thank you for all the comments that have made this an awesome show. I wish we had a chance to even keep up with like a third of them or a fourth of them. It's been amazing.
I can't wait to go through them all, and I'll try and reply to as many as I can. Thank you to everyone who's watched us today and for all these amazing comments and questions. And I mean, this has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed every second of it.
So, and thanks again. And we got some other great guests coming up. If you are new to this, go check out our podcast on Apple. You can download it there. Please give us a rating. We love that. And we also have a website, pod.socialselling20.com, and you can get all the back episodes. So the numbers one that were there, all of them are there. It's a relatively new website, pod.socialselling20.com. And we have a community, speaking of community, called socialselling20.com. Please come and join that. And we got a lot of interesting things planned for that over the next few weeks as well. So Brandon, Carson, any final words before we sign off here?
I don't think we have any words left. Daniel, thank you so much. That was excellent.
Yeah.
Well, hail the king. And, to the next 5-10 years of social selling. I think the future is bright when you've got great practitioners out there like Daniel Disney. So thanks for being on today and for blazing a trail for all of us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure. And I hope we can do this again some point because this has been a lot of fun.
You got it.
Put it on the calendar for number 100 for our American.
I don't want to wait that long. How about
how about 75 and 100? Right, you up for that, Daniel?
I will come as many times as I'm invited.
Okay.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
All right, Carson, take us home.
Until next time, and thank you everyone for the engagement today in the chat and for being on and being with us to make Social Selling 2.0 the #1 social selling podcast. Until next time, happy social selling.